sister do you talk to the most? I probably talk to Ginger the most right now, but it just varies like month to month. I do see Jana and I talk to her, but probably Ginger, and it goes between Ginger and Jana, but probably Ginger right now is the one I talk to the most. Oh, the next question is, which of your siblings do you see the most? I probably see, well, I see a lot of them at church, but I probably like actually hang out with Jed and Katie, or some of my brothers that aren't married, so like Jason and Jane, or my younger sisters, or Jana. Do you see your parents often? I do. I see my parents at least once a week. My mom comes over here probably once a month to watch my kids for Austin and I's date.
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Tuesday, January 30th, 2024. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Well, Joanna Duggar Forsyth did a Q&A on her YouTube channel and answered some of her followers' questions about who does she talk to in her family? What is she reading? Has she seen her parents? Why did she recently visit Ginger? And another question about what the hardest part of her being in the spotlight is. Now, there's been a lot in the news about the Duggars because Jill Duggar Dillard, her older sister, wrote a book, and they've done some podcasts about the family dynamics, about the trouble she's had with her father, about the control that her father has over his children, the adult children specifically. And I did a video last week where we talked specifically about how I had spoken to Derek Dillard about how some of the siblings wanted to see Jill, specifically Hannah and Jeremiah, and invited them over for a birthday party on their daughter's birthday, which happens to be Christmas. And Jim Bob lost his ever-loving mind, according to Derek. And there's been a lot of speculation about where does Jill stand with her siblings? Where does she stand with her sisters? And with Joanna being her buddy, a lot of people have wondered, where does Joanna stand? And on this channel, we've talked a little bit about, how Joy and Austin are still very involved in her parents' church, and that Austin continues to do work with affiliated businesses of Jim Bob Duggar and works with the Duggar sons, which is kind of an indication that they are in the fold. But every single person in this family is unique. A lot of them, as Jill has said, are bound by NDAs. So if you're expecting them to talk smack about their family, it's not going to happen. But in her video, she did say she is communicating with Ginger and talks to her a lot, which is a good sign because Ginger is out of the fold and would love to get more of her siblings out of at least the IBLP fold. And she didn't mention Jill. Now, not mentioning Jill certainly doesn't mean there's a rift. And even in her comments, she responded to the fact that just because she didn't mention Jessa or her other siblings doesn't mean that she doesn't have a relationship with them. But there was a part in her video that got a lot of feedback, and it actually got me several messages in my DMs that were implying or suggesting that I was the person that she was talking about when she spoke about haters or someone that was being very negative about her online and how she had reached out to them to try to calm the waters. So we're going to dive into some of those comments and what she had to say, and I'll give you my response. So before we get started, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click on the bell so you never miss a video.
What's the hardest part of living in the spotlight? Probably the number one hardest part is just everybody having an opinion on your life. And it's also like annoying. It's hard, but it's annoying because I'm like, you don't really know me. And there was one time I actually there was somebody on Instagram that was just going off about me personally. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna text. Like normally that, I feel like that would help, like if you actually have a conversation even over text with somebody. And this person was not being kind. Like they were saying things about me that they had just I guess, thought they knew, or they knew me personally, they thought they knew me personally or whatever, just because they've seen what we put out there. And so I texted back very like kindly, like, hey, here's like, hi, I'm Joy, and then like answered one of their like things that they had said towards me. And they were like, basically just spewing off like, oh, this is fake, you're just whatever. And probably the hardest thing for me is I am my own person, I'm my own family, like I have my own opinions, I have whatever. And this person would not believe me. They're like, no, this is, you know, somebody else is controlling you and you have whatever, and I don't believe you. And anyway, it's hard because people have their opinions, and there's some times where it doesn't bother me, but there are other times where when I am already like, feel like I'm knocked down, those things tend to come back and they do bother. So I have to be careful about the comments I read and when I read them, and what I allow myself to look at or see what people say about me.
So Joyanna's answering a question about the hardest part of being a public figure and what the struggle is with that. And I have a lot of empathy for her because she wasn't able to consent when she was a child on whether or not she wanted to be on reality television or not. She was not able to consent if she wanted her life to be put out into the public. And regardless of what she wanted, she was made a public figure by her parents and monopolized and monetized and exploited by her dad for profit, and she wasn't paid. She helped carry a show, Counting On, and received very little income for this, much like all the rest of her siblings. And those siblings that stayed on after Jill and Derek left, according to Jill, received a chunk of money. And as a part of that, according to Jill and Derek, they had to sign a contract with Mad Family, basically putting out content for Jim Bob, and that he would have lifetime rights to them, to their content, to their social media, and any future projects that they put out. And as a result of that, those children feel like they can't get out of it, and they're loyal to Jim Bob. And Jim Bob, according to Jill's book, has done a very good job of pitting the kids against each other, because it's easier for him to make Jill the bad person than to actually take accountability himself. And so if they're all looking at Jill as the problem, they're not going to look at what he's doing to them. It's a distraction technique, and it's a way for him to protect his ego. Jill was very clear that her siblings are controlled by her father, and that because of that, they are limited in what they can say and limited in what they can do. And so, of course, if somebody says to Joyanna on social media, you're just being controlled, you're just being brainwashed, your dad has like full control of you, she's going to say, no, that's not true. Because that's what she has to say. She can't talk about her dad. You're not ever going to hear her say, my dad has control of me. Yes, my dad's doing this. Yes, my dad's doing that. Yes, my dad controls my social media. Yes, my dad's controlling what I say. Yes, I can't speak about my dad. Yes, my dad is controlling parts of my social media. Yes, revenue streams are going to him. She'll never be able to tell you that, because she can't. And she likely doesn't understand the contracts, which is something that Jill talked about in her books, about her siblings having very limited education. In fact, many having less than a 7th grade education. So it's very easy for people to go into her comments and say nasty things to her and to get in her face and say, you're just being controlled, you're doing this, you're doing that. And I could see where she would want to respond. You're never going to be able to have a productive conversation with someone whose mind is already made up, but you're also never going to have a productive conversation with Joyanna, because she can't tell you things. And she's been groomed her whole life to respond a certain way to feedback and to respond a certain way to the public. They're very good at understanding the public image and protecting that public image for their family. I feel sad for the kids, because I'm sure they feel stuck, and I'm sure they want to say more, but they can't. So with that being said, I was told that by someone who contacted me yesterday, a couple people, that naturally the assumption is that I was the person that was going off about her on Instagram. And it was me that she reached out to have a conversation with and to explain a few things. And she said that this person was rude. They didn't want to hear what she had to say. and that they told her that she was being controlled and they didn't believe that. It's more likely that whoever did this was responding to what Jill has put out in her book, okay? There's a lot of people that comment negatively. There's an entire Duggar snark Reddit. There are other creators that follow and cover the Duggars. And so it could have been anyone. But because of my platform, some people think it's me. And when I was on Joy's video, I did notice a couple comments about me. And one said, sounds like you had a conversation with Katie Joy from Without a Crystal Ball. And the person responded, I think you're right on that one. I have her blocked from my YouTube. I got sick of her nonsense. And then someone else said, I bet it was Katie Joy from Without a Crystal Ball who you text and she wouldn't believe that you're happy and have your own mind. She's sickening and vile. It's sad because I feel like Jim Bob is sad and vile. And then someone else said, Without a Crystal Ball, said, you're in financial trouble. I'd imagine their home is paid. They go on nice trips and pay for flights to visit family in Carlin. They also make really good money from this channel. So our support helps. I believe Without a Crystal Ball is making up content. Miss Joy said, I had a very unorganized my mail pile since having Gunner and it got buried. I paid it and we're good. Thank you for your concern. And then someone said, you can't believe anything Without a Crystal Ball says. She just makes things up for clicks and views. She just seems to be a miserable person in general. Okay. So thank you for the feedback. Okay, so the tax lien that she paid off was actually a tax lien that was first reported by the Sun, and it's a public record, and it was for income tax. And she likely got notified by the state that she had money due to them for multiple years. And for whatever reason, she and Austin hadn't paid it. And she says that she's paid it and they're all good now. But that wasn't a made up story. My story was this it related at all to Jim Bob Duggar? I don't know. That was my question. Now, did I have a conversation with Joanna? Never. I've actually never spoken to Joanna. And I'm blocked by her on Instagram. A bunch of the kids have me blocked, especially the ones that are controlled by Jim Bob. I am not blocked by Jill. I'm not blocked by Derek. I'm not blocked by Ginger. I'm not blocked by Jessa. I don't think I'm blocked by Jana. But a bunch of the boys that are still under Jim Bob's control and Joy and Austin have me blocked. So it was definitely not me. And I have actually been blocked by Joy for years. Before, I think it was during Josh's trial, she blocked me, or before Josh's trial, probably before Josh's trial. I've been blocked by her for a very long time. And I definitely have not been unblocked from her since Jill wrote her book. So I was not the one at all saying that she was controlled by Jim Bob. And the only Duggar I've spoken to of that crew that is still sort of underneath his umbrella of authority is James Duggar, who sometimes we will have some snarky conversations back and forth. And that's mostly because he can be kind of a snarky kid in his comments back to me. But as far as with the girls, I would never be that rude to them in a conversation. And as much as it would feel good to say to someone, you're just being controlled, it's not going to get through to her because she doesn't understand. And if she does understand, she can't say it. So it wouldn't make any sense to say to her, you're just lying for your dad. And how's that going to make her feel? I don't always agree with like Jill and Derek, but I definitely talked to Derek Dillard. I've never talked to Jill. Maybe I've exchanged, like we've commented back and forth, I think, in comments, but I don't think we've ever talked. No, I talked to Derek. I talked to Derek's mom. I've talked to Amy, Deanna, James Duggar a couple times. I haven't talked to James Duggar in a long time. But no, never Joanna, never Ginger, never Jessa. It's just no. So I can see why people would think it would be me. And I do want to just remind people that, you know, when it comes to these kids, you have to remember the girls are victims and they're still being victimized. And so it's easy to get angry at them. And you can make the decision whether you want to support them or not. The only thing I've ever said on this channel is that to just be mindful of the fact that Jim Bob has a lot of control over these kids still. And so they have talking points that they use for him. And they've been instructed over the years to memorize these talking points.
Just because there are times when I can take it and there's times that I can't, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's hard because I do put my, like growing up, you know, I've grown up in the spotlight, but now like we've chosen to put ourselves out there, so it's a little bit more like, okay, that's us. But for people to say things that they don't actually, when they don't actually know us, is really frustrating, because in my heart, I'm like, I want them to really get to know me. And that's another thing, that's part 2, is like, I wish people would get to know me for me and not for my whole family, if that makes sense. Like, I am an individual, and anyway, so that's probably the second part of it, is like not being lumped together as a whole family, but like getting to know each one of my siblings individually, and not like lumping everybody together, if that makes sense.
So on the one hand, I feel very empathetic for Joanna, and I feel like it must be hard to grow up in a family where there are so many people, and you're vying for attention, and you're vying for affection, and you're wanting to stand out, and then you come from a culture where everyone wants everyone to be the same, because that's what the IBLP is all about. And it would probably be hard, because when you're in a big family, it's hard for people to decipher who's good and who's bad when the system is completely toxic. And unfortunately, because Joy and Austin are still going to church with the Duggars, and she spends quite a bit of time talking about her pastor, Neil, and he's horrible. He is so brainwashed. He is so doom, gloom, fire, brimstone, IFB, misogynistic, sexist, awful. And I feel sad for her, because Austin is so in the system. He is so he's so IFB. He is so Baptist, like fundamentalist. And even if they don't attend the IBLP seminars, it's part of their daily life. Their whole systems are designed around this authority level. She still goes to church with her parents. Her and Austin specifically, is working with all of Jim Bob's contacts. And, you know, I feel empathy. I feel sad for her, because she spent quite a bit of time too speaking about struggling with postpartum depression. And what makes me sad about this for her is that she won't get help for it, because they don't believe in help. They don't believe in medication. They don't believe in seeing a doctor. They don't believe in going on any sort of pharmaceuticals. She said that there are days that she's crying and so overwhelmed, and that it's been an extremely hard postpartum for her, and that there are some days that she just doesn't even want to get out of bed. She says, there are more days that I'm happy now than sad, but it's clear that she says she has postpartum depression, and no amount of praying is going to help her fix the chemical imbalance of what her body has gone through with the hormone change in her body. And it can be very dangerous for women in the IBLP who don't get treated for their postpartum. And because they go through so many different pregnancies back to back to back, and their hormones are all out of whack, severe mental health issues can take place. I mean, I'm not saying she has anything to do with Andrea Yates, but Andrea Yates was from the fundamentalist, quiverful world, and that not treating postpartum can take people to very dark places if they don't get help. And so my encouragement to anyone is that if you're struggling with postpartum, you are not alone, and make sure that you contact your doctor and speak to professionals to help you. There's counseling available. There's hotlines to help if you're having thoughts of harming yourself. And there's resources like medications that can help you through the time. And I know a lot of women that go through postpartum and they're just on meds for a short period. And then once things regulate, they get off the meds. And then there's women like me that need help every day. And I'm a huge advocate that people get the help that they need and not have to feel like they struggle. And as someone that used to believe the same things, that you shouldn't, that faith alone should be able to cure you, I have to say I hope she gets help, because she shouldn't have to feel sad every day. And when it comes to her life, I can't help but think that part of her saying that she's not being controlled is because Jim Bob wants his kids to remind people on their social media that they're not being controlled. because that's what he wants the public to think. He wants everyone to think that Jill's a liar. And I hope one day Joy can break free. That's my goal. That's my hope. But I definitely never spoke to her. And if you do engage with them, please don't send them hate and don't be horrible. It's not productive for anyone. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.